Hi, Rochelle with Lady Fermenter. Join us today as we talk about using your 5 senses to brew better beer. First, we're going to start with sight, and we're going to start with reading the yeast packet because they're all different. Every lab gives different directions because they know what works best with the yeast that they're producing. Omega, they like you to get it out of the refrigerator at least 3 hours before at room temperature. And they also put little nuggets of information like this particular German one needs a diacetyl rest. Imperial is direct pitch. Goes right from the refrigerator into your wort. And the other thing that's on the package are the rates and the best temperature, the temperature that is best for each particular yeast. White Labs, they don't put a lot on their package, but except for storage, but they do give you a QR code which sends you to more information about that particular strain. Y Yeast, they have a little packet of nutrients in here that you need to chase around the packet and break. Excuse me, after you break it, then they want you to shake it. And again, they want this out of the refrigerator for at least 3 hours. Okay. Dry yeast, by far the easiest. Gives you the temperature range, and then all you're going to do is sprinkle it into the wort. And speaking about temperature range, the other thing that's great about reading your yeast package is if you don't have temperature control, you can pick yeast that works for whatever your situation is based on its best temperature. Okay? And also, yeah, there's tons of information. ABV tolerance, attenuation, how well it flocculates, what's recommended for a 5-gallon batch. All right, hops. Hops are very interesting. So it's an item, it's a plant that grows. And depending upon soil, cooling, hot days, cold days, how many warm nights. I mean, there's so many factors. A wet season, a dry season, those all impact your hops. Now, this is really interesting. Even though these are 2 packets, even from the same supplier, this is Cascade. This one's kind of hard to see, but that says 8% alpha. And this one is only 5.2% alpha, which means this one's going to be more bitter than this one. Check this out. Centennial. This packet, 4.9% alpha. This one, 9.4% alpha. Northern Brewer, 9.8% alpha. It's the same hop, but this one is 11.4. So why I'm bringing this up is because even though you may grab whatever hop variety that you're going to use, one may be significantly more or less bitter than the one you used last time. So make sure you make note of that. What I like to do is I like to keep the hop packet and the yeast packet until we're actually to the finished beer, and then I can decide, did we like it, did we not, what would we change going forward. So make sure when you're taking your notes that you record the alpha level of that particular hop. My next tip is when you're using someone else's recipe, always look at the batch size first and then make the adjustments that you need to for your equipment, because this could be a professional recipe that's not broken down to home brewer level. They're just sharing it. So you could end up buying a lot more ingredients than what you actually need because you didn't check the batch size first. Now, the other thing that's great to do is go to the manufacturer. Now we're we're going to move on to smell. So the first place I would start are hops. They should smell herbally and resiny. If they smell like cheese or freezer burn, don't put them in your beer unless you're one of those brewers that are aging your hops in your attic. Now, smell might be a good option for you too, because you might be able to tell when your aged hops are ready to go into the beer. But smell anything you're putting into your beer. So if you've made a tincture or roasted coconut, are using fruit or fruit puree, if it doesn't smell good, it's probably not something you want to put into your beer. That's totally up to you, but I always smell stuff just to be on the safe side. For touch, all I've got for touch is really examining your equipment, making sure that it feels nice and clean, that you've used a good cleaner and that you've rinsed it really well, and that there's nothing, I mean, it looks clean, but I always like to give it just a little once over to make sure I haven't missed anything, because again, we don't want any sneaky little microbes messing up our beer. Okay, taste. I start with munching on the grain. It should be crisp and crunchy and hard. If it's soft and mealy, don't brew with it. Now for me, I like to taste along the brewing process. So I like to taste after mash out, after boil, and I like to taste before we go to keg in case I want to make some changes. If something isn't robust enough or hoppy enough, then that gives me an opportunity to course correct, maybe throw toasted coconut or throw more hops at it. I also like to make notes along the way because it helps me remember and see how the fermentation process is changing the flavor. Last but not least, sound. Now, I know there's a lot of great podcasts out there and YouTube channels, but honestly, my recommendation is that you listen to the producers, the labs, the yeast producers, the grain producers, the hop producers. Oftentimes they're on podcasts or they have their own website and their own videos. That is where I think you get the best information. You get a ton of ideas. They break things down, and it's a great way to really educate yourself. And why I like listening is I get to multitask. So I can listen on a brew day. I can listen when I'm cleaning. It's a great way to multitask. I hope you found one little bit of information that's helpful. Thanks a pint for watching, and likes really help our channel and are much appreciated.